And welcome to the IDP show preview pod for week 8. I am your host this evening, Jake Colhagen, joined by the most magnificent bearded son of a gun that I have ever met, the Kyle Bellefeuil of Footballguys. Kyle, how are you this evening? No holes in ones today, right?
No, just some very mediocre or below mediocre golf today for me. But hey, I got the golf probably last round of the year. It's getting cold up here in the UP. But hey, we got one more in. But hey, dude, hey, thanks for having me, man. It's great to be here. I'm pumped to get to chat with you and talk some ball, brother.
Dude, I love my time with Evan, but if I can replace it with time with Kyle, that's always an acceptable replacement. So I'm stoked to work with you tonight, sir. So with that said, let's jump right into it because we got a full slate of games, no bye weeks this week. Coming off of week 7 where we had 6 teams on bye. So first matchup, we're gonna go back and forth here. Kyle's got the away teams, I got the home teams. We're going to hit some of those notes for you we think very relevant. We're not going to talk about how you need to start Micah Parsons because you know that you need to start Micah Parsons. We're going to try and talk through some of those other pieces that have a little bit more uncertainty to them or a little gray area or just some of those notes we need to pay attention to. So that said, Kyle, take us away with the Buccaneers Bills on Thursday night.
Right on, buddy. First guy I want to talk about is Shaquille Barrett. Edge for the Buccaneers. Last week he had 7 tackles and he got home for his second sack of the year against Atlanta. It was great to see Shaq get back making splash plays behind the line after a quiet couple weeks. But week 8 it's a tougher matchup for defensive ends, edge rushers against Buffalo. So while it's great to see Shaq making it happen, it's a little bit tougher. A little bit tougher matchup from this week. So I'm tempering expectations on Shaq this week. So, hey, deeper leagues, if you want to roll them out, get it. But, it's definitely, a tougher week for him. Next guy looking at is Ryan Neal, safety for the Bucs. He had 10 tackles in week 7 after just 8 tackles combined the previous 2 games. Neal, he gets a little bit of sleeper hype before the year. He hasn't quite been what we had hoped, holding down that more box role in Tampa. And but last week was a good week. He spent about half his time up in the box. I hope he keeps it going, but I still see him more as like a safety 3, safety 4 type, not chasing the numbers, starting him over a guy I got higher in my ranks just because he had a nice week type of deal there. And then the last guy here, the biggest name of the guys I'm going to talk about for the Bucs is Mr. Devin White. What do we do with Mr. Devin White, Jake? He's been an inefficient tackler, and the splash plays just haven't been there right this year so far. 1 tackle for loss and 0 sacks so far. So it's just not great there. And the grades have been pretty rough as well. That's the norm with him, though. We've seen that, right? You're likely not looking to sit him or anything given where you drafted him, right? Because he's got that, name power pull when draft season. Obviously depending on your options, but it hasn't been ideal for Devin White. I don't know how you feel on Mr. Devin White.
No, I'm with you, right? And I think even his pass rush grade for PFF has been the lowest of his career so far, right? You mentioned it perfectly. That's been his calling card, right? He's had 6, 9, 7, 8 sack seasons, but nothing so far this year, and the PFF grades reflect that. So, I was just talking with Mr. Macri of PFF as well, and he called him Devin Beige, right? Or Devin Off White.
I love it. Macri's such a beauty.
Yeah, he is in so many ways, but
he is.
So no, I'm totally with you on that. But speaking of linebacker problems, we're jumping over to the Buffalo side. Dorian Williams pulled again after 21 snaps in favor of Tyrell Dotson last week, and Dotson played the remaining 31. This is the second time this has now happened to this Buffalo Bills linebacker 2 position, and now we're looking at a short week to prepare with the Thursday matchup. If you have to play someone from this linebacker 2 position for the Bills, I'm going to lean Dotson, veteran, short week. I think they've shown that they're trying to make Dorian Williams a thing, and it's not a thing yet. So I would stay away from it if you can, especially since we have a full complement of games, so a full complement of IDPs to pick from, and hopefully maybe you'll catch some names later in the show that'll maybe you can replace in there. But for now, it's Dotson for me. But if you can avoid it, I think you should try to avoid it. The other name that kind of stood out for me I want to talk about was Jordan Poyer, someone who'd kind of been a little bit down in terms of his IDP production overall this season, especially in terms of what we've seen from him historically in other seasons. He got his first big play for us, recording his first sack. Um, and some of the best box utilization in the last 3 weeks as well for him. So 27, 35, and 19 snaps there against the Jags, Giants, and Pats. If he can see some more of these better box utilizations overall, I think that's something that can help Jordan Poyer become a little more stable for us, and we can be more excited about plugging in someone who's been a large name, stable IDP asset for us into our lineups every week moving forward. So, any thoughts on the Bills matchup from you, Kyle?
No, that's great stuff, man. I'm with you on that linebacker 2 spot in Buffalo. Eileen Dotson as well, just given what we've seen. But yeah, like I think you laid it out great. Like we got everybody playing this week. If you can avoid it. But if you have to, right, Dotson's probably the guy this week, given what we've seen. But you think one thing and they do another, so we'll see. But yeah, I like that call a lot. Just to, if you have to, whatever, but avoid it if you can. But yeah,
Yep.
Good stuff, man.
All right, well, jumping into the first of the Sunday games, no overseas games, so we're kicking everything off at noon Central Time here. We got the Saints at the Colts. So take us away on the Saints, Kyle.
Yeah, for the Saints, first guy I was looking to talk about here is Mr. Pete Werner. Sorry. Just 13 tackles over his last 3 games. Certainly not ideal production of late for Werner, and we view him more as a tackle guy. Linebacker, and he just hasn't been really put up the numbers we had hoped. This week he gets Indianapolis. It's a good matchup for linebackers. So does Pete get back on track this week? I think we could see him with a little nice bounce back week this week, especially in like those tackle heavy formats. Not necessarily calling out LB1 numbers or anything, but I'm okay if he's my LB2 this week, and I'm certainly happy if he's my LB3. Obviously depending on your options, what you have in those tackle heavy leagues. So looking for Pete Werner to get right a little bit this week in a nice matchup. And just staying on with the linebackers, just wanted to mention Demario Davis. He was able to go in week 7, but he saw his lowest snap share at 73%. I believe he was a knee he was dealing with. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think it was a knee. So it was his lowest snap share at 73%. He was able to go. Just kind of keep an eye on it, keep tabs on his health. And if he's a full go, he's likely back to his every down role, but it's just something to keep in mind if you're, looking at Davis as an option. And then the last guy is Carl Granderson, defensive end. What a treat this guy has been so far. Yeah, absolutely. Chef's kiss. Especially considering where you drafted him, before the year, and you might even grab him off waivers depending on your league size, format, and everything. 4.5 sacks on the year. No sacks this past week, but he still got you 6 tackles, 5 of them solos, a tackle for loss, and recovered a fumble. He's just been getting it done for each week. He's not leaving you with any goose eggs. He's had some big weeks, but he's had some decent floor weeks too. Happy rolling him out as my DE or edge 2 or 3 this week against Indianapolis.
You know what? I'm okay with goose bags as the new term as well. So I like that. That feels like it's a bag full of goose eggs, right?
Yeah. I think we just started somthing. Goose bags.
Yeah, right. That's it's way worse than a goose egg. So
yeah, let's start the hashtag going.
But no, I gotta say I love the Granderson one too. It's just been a guy who's been consistently a 400 or 500 snap guy, already closing in on 400, 500 snaps, and just
love it.
Passing, making it a career year for himself. So, guy needed a chance to prove himself. He's got it, and he's done it. So,
and he got the bag.
He did. He really did, and proving it was worth it. So,
yeah, good call. Yeah, love it.
On the other side, Kwity Paye really kind of been struggling this year. Kind of, he came in. Kind of a big name in his draft class a few years back, dealt with some injuries, really kind of showed some flashes then, in the next couple of years. And we thought we really had something here, but, only an 8.5% win rate in pass rush situations, only a 7.6 pass rush pressure rate in an actual pass rush reps. Really, we'd expect about 2 sacks. He's currently at 3, so a little bit of overproduction, but the metrics don't really look the best overall in terms of what he's going to be able to give us in terms of his upside. So I think at this point, volume wise, you can still be plugging him in and playing him, especially with the amount of snaps the Colts generally have been able to play. but just lower those expectations overall. Maybe more of a back end DN2. Excuse me, battling a cold over here. Shaq Leonard is the other name I want to talk about. So snaps really seem to be leveling off for him pretty consistently around that 50-ish snap count. So I'm not sure if he's kind of on some sort of actual rep count or pitch count going out there. But he's really been heavily focused in the rundowns, first and second. And you see that in terms of he's really been able to only deliver in the tackle space. He hasn't given us anything other than a couple of tackles for losses and limited pass rush upside because he's not really in on passing downs or passing sets. So someone who went from being kind of an IDP stalwart stud for us, top IDP asset, now to someone who's really looking at an LB 3-4 range, at best. And so it's disappointing to see him kind of fade off that way, but maybe this is a week where he can do more. We'll see, especially with the check down master Derek Carr on the other side and Alvin Kamara back. So maybe there's an opportunity to see the tackles jump up a little bit, but I'm limiting expectations with Shaq Leonard going forward if we haven't already started doing that.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like, it's a bummer to see Shaq Leonard not be himself because he was such a fun player and just a great IDP asset for the stretch there when he was the maniac. But it hasn't been great. I do like the call for the dump off king. What did Kamara have, like 12 catches last week or something?
Yeah, so I think he's averaging 10 over the last 2 games too. So I mean
it's there for a few tackles, but for sure. I'm temporary expectations on Leonard until we see him improve a little bit and pay as well. I've always been a Kwity Paye fan. I'm a Michigan fan, so obviously he pulls up my heartstrings a little. But it hasn't been great. Ideal as well for him. So I like the low end DL2. Is probably it's a good call. I'm more comfortable there. And same thing with Leonard. Temper expectations with both these guys until we see or are proven differently.
But then moving into one of the more proven teams here this NFL season, the Philadelphia Eagles taking on the Washington Commanders. Kyle, what are we thinking with the Philadelphia Eagles?
First thing, trade, man. Kevin Byard going to Philly. What a deal. And what a great price. What was it? 5th and 6th round pick and Terrell Edmonds. Is that right? Yeah. Great value. And Kevin Byard's a good player, and it's a great get for them for that back end for a team that's going to be pushing, to get back to the Super Bowl. So, I just love this get for Philly from, an NFL perspective and fantasy perspective too, man. So Byard's a good player, and, he's going from a Tennessee team that's not playing inspired football necessarily right now to a team, that's going to be playing very inspired football. So you got to kind of like that too. He's going to have a little more juice, you would think. Not saying he's not playing with any, but it's got to feel good to go play for a contender. But no, that's some cool news here, seeing a trade like that, a good player going to a really good team. Next is the Washington Commanders. Sam Howell's been sacked 40 freaking times already. Was he on pace for like 290 sacks taken or something? I have no idea what it is, but it seems like a ton. So start your pass rushers. Hassan Reddick's getting it going. Fire him up. Josh Sweat. Let's get sweaty out there, baby. Fire him up. Jalen Carter at defensive tackle. If you got an Eagles defender, it's a good week to play. Or Eagles defensive lineman, defender, whatever. It's a good week to play him. So you got to love it. And then last thing I would touch on is the Philly linebackers. It's a little messy right now with them seemingly easing Nakobe Dean back in since he's returned. Looking at the week 7 snaps, Zach Cunningham played 100% of snaps this week. Dean played 61%, and Nicholas Morrow played 39%. Out of that trio, Dean is easily the most exciting of the bunch. Cunningham was a nice IDP asset at one time in his career, but he's not the same guy by any means. So Dean's easily the most exciting of the bunch, but it'll be hard to trust until we see him start to get more ideal volume. I'd love to see him start getting in that 80% plus range here and see what he can do. So be keeping an eye on that Philly linebacker snap usage here again this week.
Yep, I'm totally with you. And it's one of those things where I always worry when a guy gets injured and teams have to shift their game plan or their personnel. And all of a sudden they're like, oh, hey, this actually kind of works too, right?
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden, for some reason we're rotating, right? When it was like, oh, it's pretty much a locked and loaded. These are the two guys going forward. So
Yep.
definitely keep an eye on it. Is there any pass rusher you like more this week? Like, is there someone where you're just like, Carter's easily notching 2 sacks, right? Is there anything you're really pumped about with that group?
I would love to see Hassan Reddick have a big week for my IDP Madness team and my other best ball teams. But I also have a ton of Josh Sweat in a lot of my leagues. So I'm going to say I want Josh Sweat to have a big week. I got a couple key matchups I need to win. So I'm going to go with Josh Sweat. Let's go.
All right. We're manifesting it into the world. Here it is. Josh Sweat multi-sack game incoming.
Love it. Let's go.
Well, then, multi-sack games. Chase Young, I think he's just coming off a 2-sack game from the Commanders side. Chef's kiss to him too. I just love the resurgence for him. So, I think he's reached the point probably where most of us realize, if you're starting 2 defensive ends, this guy is pretty much set and forget it for you at this point. Maybe again, temper expectations. This Philadelphia O-line is phenomenal, and Jalen Hurts, his ability to reduce the impact of pass rushes with his own ability to manipulate the pocket and move outside of it. But you're still starting Chase Young if you got him. Cody Barton seen in a walking boot after last week, so and David Mayo of all people was the next man up. Definitely did not see that coming. But if that's something where you're in need of that, he's the one who came in 41 snaps. He put up 8 tackles for us. This matchup could get ugly, especially with the pass rush that the Commanders will be facing here. They could be spending a lot of time on defense. So, David Mayo is someone, if you're in a pinch or you're in a much deeper league, you could definitely be looking at. And finally, I got to talk about him because he's my guy, Cam Curl, right here on the wall. Love him. I was calling for a big year for him this year, bigger than years he's had in the past. Coming off one of his worst games of the year, but also his lowest utilization in the box so far this year, by 9 snaps overall based on where he's played. So maybe that's something with the Barton injury coming into play. They just felt like they had to shift things around with some of the uncertainty and the new personnel. So hopefully with a week to prepare for their lineup now with David Mayo or whomever it is that ends up stepping in, Curl can get back to a full utilization of his role inside the box and near the line of scrimmage. Any thoughts on the Commanders there, Kyle? Or
no, I just I like that call on Cam Curl. It's maybe this week was his utilization was a little different given the injury to Barton early on. Just something to keep an eye on. But yeah, you've been on Cam Curl right away, and he's been awesome this year. So let's get back to the norm here, and let's go Curl.
I love it. Curls for the girls, right? I think that's what they're talking about, is the more Cam Curl shares when they say that, right? So the
absolutely,
more curls.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the way I interpret it.
Oh man, I am terrible. Let's move on to something not terrible, or maybe it will be. Who knows? We'll find out on Sunday. The Jaguars at the Steelers. Kyle, Duval, who do we got?
Duval. First thing is linebacker Devin Lloyd. Lloyd missed a few games when they went over to London. He had a thumb injury. He had a little surgery there. Since he's come back, he's taken firm hold of that LB2 spot, and he's produced 20 tackles, 12 solos over his last 2 games. So a nice return, nice healthy snap shares. Chad Muma is now an afterthought after he struggled to fill in for Lloyd. I'm really pumped that we finally have some clarity on the full-time guy next to Foye in Jacksonville, it seems. So it's nice to have a little peace of mind there when you're clicking the box if you have Devin Lloyd, that he's taken firm hold of that role right now, it seems. And then just wanted to talk a little bit about Josh Allen. He's a little bit of a bigger name as far as pass rushers go and whatnot, but he had a quiet week 7 in the box score with just 2 tackles, but he did have 3 quarterback hits and he generated 10 pressures against New Orleans. That's a big number. So he was a straight up problem. He just didn't get home, and that happens sometimes. His pass metrics are rock solid: a 14.2% pressure rate and a true pass set rating of 28.3% win rate. So you just love that. And we've also seen him follow up slow weeks with big showings. Like those 3 sacks games. I'm not saying he's gonna have 3 sacks, but we've seen him come back and just with his hair on fire. So all that just to say, click the box and put Josh Allen in your lineup.
I love it, and I love the parallel you drew there. Right, you said Devin Lloyd had thumb surgery, and then he had a firm grasp on that role. Right,
Right?
so you're doing that, and then I also feel like you're taking shots at me with the hair on fire thing. Right, like I
I
because
would
I have hair,
never.
I cannot come anywhere with hair on fire.
I would
Unfortunately,
never do that, man.
so. All right, moving on to the Pittsburgh side of things. I view this Pittsburgh Steelers linebacker room pretty poorly at this point. A lot of just inconsistent usage overall in terms of the matchups they end up playing and how they're deploying Quan Alexander and a Landon Roberts. I mean, they seem to have their roles for the most part, but the games don't go consistently enough in one way or another that we can generally predict who's going to be out there alongside Cole Holcomb. And Cole Holcomb, well, if you got him, you're likely starting him, and he's a very viable, LB 2-3 type play. He just hasn't shown the efficiency that we've known from him in his time in Washington, and maybe a large part of that, in my speculation, is when you get to play behind Jonathan Allen and Daron Payne, you probably have a lot cleaner sets that you're looking at and can
Yep.
be a lot more efficient in your playmaking. So, I don't know that Holcomb's someone I'm excited about really this year and going forward, especially in this role. So, with that said, poor linebacker play generally tends to leak plays behind them. And Minkah Fitzpatrick, I just want to call out, dude's been on an absolute tackling tear. And look to a few years back after the Devin Bush injury, and this linebacker room became very inconsistent or uncertain again. That's exactly when we saw Minkah Fitzpatrick just pile up hundreds of tackles. And this last week he played a season high 34 snaps in the box. I think that the defense realizes what they need from that playmaker. And they just shipped off Terrell Edmonds. No, excuse me, they let Terrell Edmonds go, who used to be a box player, and they never had anything with it. They know that it needs to be someone like Minkah as a playmaker. And yeah, so I think most people were starting Minkah as it was regardless, but maybe this is a time to buy high on him. And I think that you're going to see him just have another one of those massive tackle seasons going forward this year.
That's a good call, man. I like that. Minka's been playing well. And I also like, like you said, steering away from that Pittsburgh linebacker unit. It's just, the way they rotate and deploy those guys, other than Holcomb. Holcomb's got a little bit more of an ideal snap share, not quite what I had hoped. I thought he might break the mold there a little bit, looking at his contract and the type of player he is. But he hasn't, been that like every snap guy, either. So, and those other guys, they fluctuate so much. I'm with you there. Like you could play Holcomb, sure, but the other guys steer away from if you can.
All right. Well, let's head out to New York for this matchup, but we wouldn't see the game then since both teams technically play in New Jersey. We got the New York Jets at the New York Giants.
First guy I want to talk about here's a guy you're putting in your lineup, especially in these DT leagues and whatnot. And that's Quinnen Williams. Could this be the week that Quinnen goes off? The Giants online have allowed 36 sacks on the year, and the man is due. So let's go, big guy. He's been playing fine. He's grading fine. I think he's got an 11% pressure rate, 21 or 22% win rate, and true pass sets. So the numbers are fine. It just isn't quite getting home. He's not leaving you with goose bags, as we would say. He's getting you stats and whatnot. He just hasn't had the big sack games yet. So this could be the week that Quinnen, goes off with a nice matchup against the old Swiss cheese O-line of the Giants. So I just want to kind of talk that into happening, talk that into the universe or whatever. So let's go, Big Q. The other guy I want to talk about is pass rusher Bryce Huff. Huff was balling before the bye week. He had 2.5 sacks over his last 2 games, just a 34% snap share on the year. But he played a season high 35 snaps, 50% snap share in week 6. He's a pass rush specialist with a 29.8% pressure rate. So he's good at it, good at that role. He could be a nice streaming option in deeper leagues with his spicy matchup against New York. He's probably really could be on the edge or the E3 radar because, the matchup's there. And if he keeps keeps going with what he's doing, it's there for him another nice week. And I know I think I saw Carl Lawson was on the trade block, so that would kind of help his case just to get another guy out of his way. But we want more Bryce Huff, and Huff's he's due to be a free agent this offseason, so he's a great guy to stash on your dynasty roster. So we just would love to see a guy. I'd love to see a guy like that go to a team that needs a pass rusher, or they just invest in him, right? Whatever. Somebody pay the man and put him out there and let him get us some points and wreak some havoc, man.
Right. Let this guy eat, man. I love it. And
let's go.
And I totally love that we're getting rid of the goose bags for Quinnen Williams this week, man. I was thinking the same thing. I love it. All right. Well, on the Giants side of this matchup, someone I want to talk about was Cordell Flott playing in the slot. So the guy got his second start last week. And he racked up four solos and 2 assists. And it seems like, they're going to probably be running a large part of their set with Flott out there in the slot role 75% of the time. I think this really brings Flott forward as a weekly starter for cornerback required leagues, especially in a matchup here against the Jets, where I think playing close to the line of scrimmage is going to be ideal for them, where the Jets have a clear tendency to run the ball in neutral game scripts, and I think he can go ahead and take advantage of that situation. And then along the defensive line for the Giants, one of the names that kind of gets lost in, you had Dexter Lawrence had a huge breakout campaign last year. Kayvon Thibodeau was, the big flashy name from the top 5, top 6 draft pick, whatever he was. But Leonard Williams was a former number 6 overall pick as well. And can, like I said, can easily be forgotten. However, I think he is someone that's fading into the background a little bit with reason this year. He's got a pretty limited tackle floor, less than 3 per game for an interior defender. And 2 sacks he's converted is okay and kind of about expected overall, maybe a little bit of overproduction, but the 8.7% pass rush pressure rate is a little disappointing, but he is winning at above a 20% rate in his actual pass rush matchups against the offensive line. So overall, I think, he's, like I said, he's okay, especially in much deeper leagues. But this is an average or less than average matchup, I think, for them against the Jets. And for me, I'm going to pass on Leonard Williams this week. I'm not looking to really get him into any lineups again, unless you're talking DL4 type range or DT2-3 in certain situations. So
yeah, I think that's totally fair call with Williams for sure, man. I just like your note about calling Dexter Lawrence sexy Dexy. I think that's
I mean, how can you not, man?
It's got to stick.
Right. Then moving on to the next matchup, we have the Texans at the Panthers. Kyle, make my Houston Texans sound really cool.
All right, man. I'll do my best. They are cool, man. That's an up and coming team right there. I like it. The first thing I want to talk about is the Houston linebacker unit. It's a really curious situation. One to really keep tabs on. I'm just curious what it looks like coming out of the bye. It had been Henry 2-0, Hanky Two Toes, as the beautiful John Macri calls him, and Blake Cashman as the full-time guys the past 2 games before the bye. Denzel Perryman had a club on his hand, played just 35 snaps. And then in week 5, before being a healthy scratch in week 6, I believe they said they did that because it wasn't fair to him to play hurt with that club. So we'll see there. Cashman had been grading and producing really well with this added volume. Just a real real surprise, man. I mean, I always liked Blake Cashman. He kind of struggled to stay healthy, but man, I mean, he's really been balling. It's really cool to see. I'm just really not sure what it looks like. If they feel he's fully healthy, ready to go coming out of the bye. Those snaps are going to be something to really watch. If I had to choose one this week, of the 3, I would probably lean 2-0. He's had a 96.5% snap share over his past 4 games, and he had been wearing the dot. So I'm just a little more comfortable with his volume, with this uncertainty amongst the 3 of those guys. But this is amongst the linebacker units. Everybody's playing this week, but this is one I'm really going to be looking at the snap counts and everything after the games are all done. And then the next guy I want to talk about is rookie Will Anderson. Love me some Will Anderson. He hasn't recorded a sack since week 1. However, his pass rush metrics have been pretty solid. He's got a 14.1% pressure rate and a 24.7% win rate. So pretty nice numbers there. You love to see it as a rookie too, right? It's a tough thing to be putting up nice pressure metrics like that as a rookie. It's tough playing the edge in the NFL, man. Carolina has allowed 19 sacks so far. So do we see the number 3 overall pick take down the number 1 overall pick, Bryce Young, on Sunday? I think there's a chance. I really do. But I mean, Anderson should still be viewed as more like a D3 type. But I think there's a little upside with him this week, and I'm excited with Anderson. I'm ready to see him get back in that sack column and get us excited again. Let's go.
Yeah, I love the call out, and I love the matchup for him too as well. It's that's one where he's made some plays, especially like in the run game.
Yes,
but for what they spent on him, and
yeah.
really how I view they want to make him the face of that defense and a co-face of the franchise along with Stroud. It would be really nice to see him step up and make a few more of those plays, especially in the passing game.
Yep, with you, man.
All right. Well, then on to the Panthers side of the ball. A former large name in IDP circles, Jeremy Chin, heading to the IR. His season and IDP performance have not matched how his career has started out for us. Troy Hill seemed to take over some of the slot-specific duties. However, this could allow Sam Franklin Jr. to stay relevant with, Xavier Woods and Von Bell's return, not necessarily 100% known at this point in time. General injury timelines would align that they could be back in near full starting roles, both of them this week, but haven't seen anything yet. So really want to pay close attention to the Panthers injury report this week to understand kind of where they're at. Sam Franklin kind of might be the last man standing and be the one IDP asset out of the back end of this defense that you're really going to be looking at for this week. But again, let's wait to see how the IR or the injury report shakes out going into the back half of this week. The other name I wanted to call out was someone I was very excited about this offseason, Derek Brown, defensive tackle for the Panthers. He had a really solid start to the season here for IDP, notched a sack in week 1. Unfortunately, the only sack that he's been able to put in place so far. And his pass rush measures have kind of fallen off since the early part of the season. A 5.7% pass rush pressure rate. His win in pass rush sets, just above 10%. Really kind of leave us lacking in the upside. However, his tackle floor has been phenomenal. He is on a pace for 96 combined tackles on the year, 68 solos, and 28 assists. If you can give me 100 tackle season from a defensive tackle, I mean, unless you're super depressed scoring for tackles, I mean, sign me up, man. I love being able to plug and play that, especially, if you're DT2 especially. I mean, that's massive. So I really love what he's done in that regard. Just would love to see him maybe step up and deliver a little bit more upside in the pass rush, even if it's just, better numbers overall in terms of producing the pressure or getting close to the hurries of the quarterback hits. So
I'm with you on Derek Brown. I like this call a lot, man. And you're right. Like, if he's your DT2 in like true position, DT required leagues, and he's providing you a nice tackle floor, that's a hard position to get a tackle floor like this out of and just feel comfortable every week you're getting something, right? Something steady and productive like that. Like, I like that a lot. Yeah, Derek Brown's been real solid. We'd love to see like a few of those splash plays, a few more of those splash plays, right? But like, just real solid, man. I like that call a lot.
All right. Well, then splashing into the next matchup here, we got the Dolphins, right? Because water and splashing. Yeah.
That's what they do.
That's right. Taking on the New England Patriots. We got the Patriots showing up to the Dolphins here for another noon matchup. Who are we looking at on the New England side?
Patriot IDPs just aren't exciting overall, right? I think a lot of us will say that. It's just not fun. Outside of J1 Bentley, Kyle Duggar, but a guy I want to talk about is Anthony Jennings. he's seen his workload increase since Matt Judon went down. Unfortunately, Matt Judon, I should say, was an exciting New England IDP. He's just not playing right now, unfortunately. So yeah, since Judon's went down, Jennings has seen his workload increase. 81% snaps over his last 3 games, and a season high 69 snaps, 97% week 6. I think he got dinged up for like a play or two, but came right back in from what I read. Just an insane workload. His pass rush metrics aren't anything to get excited about at all, but it's more his volume that's appealing, because that's just a ton of snaps. You're just gonna trip into production somehow at some point, right? Miami's a tough matchup for opposing defensive linemen, so Jennings is just a volume play in deep leagues, but like only if you have to, right? If you gotta, you gotta. He's out there enough to get you something. Not super exciting, pass rush wise or anything, but he's out there a ton, man, and that counts for something, especially when you're looking at edge guys, right? If you're looking to find a guy or break a tie, the guy's out there a ton. He'll trip into somebody or fall over and take a guy with him, whatever. Another guy is JC Jackson, who they brought back over to play corner after Christian Gonzalez went down. Jackson has a 93% snap share and has faced 16 targets over his past 2 games. Miami's passing offense is potent as hell. That's nothing new. They should keep him plenty busy, making him someone to consider in those cornerback required leagues. And speaking of cornerback required leagues, if you're looking for cornerback options, do yourself a favor and go see my buddy Johnny the Greek's cornerback quarter article over at the IDP show. Johnny's the best in the business, and do yourself a favor and go check that out if you're looking to get an edge at the position.
Dude, you could not make a greater call out for that. I mean, he just, oh my God. I wish I could do anything at the level of efficiency that he does with cornerback stuff, man. I mean, it is absolutely ridiculous. So yeah, and then the Anthony Jennings one, like Josh Uche, Dietrich Wise, and Keon White were all hurt last week.
All dinged up. Yep. Yeah.
Good call. Yeah, it looks like White is already a did not participate this week, and Uche and Wise were both limited participants. So
yeah,
I mean, you definitely got to keep an eye on that, because when you're getting 97% utilization, that's Max Crosby-esque. Like no one other than Crosby does that. So
yeah,
but again, Anthony Jennings, Max Crosby, only in terms of snap count. That's it.
That's it. Yeah,
don't get confused here, people.
Absolutely.
Moving over to the Miami side, I want to talk about Jerome Baker. Played 100% of the snaps last week and piled up 9 tackles. Obviously, had the big flashy touchdown, the pass that like bounced off Kader Kohu's head as he was jumping to try and deflect it. So, but the big story for me in terms of utilization really is this is the second time in 3 games that Baker's had 100% utilization, which has not historically been his calling card. So seeing that, especially with David Long, I know he got banged up in this game, but he's been healthy otherwise. It seems to me they're telling us with their actions that Baker is the guy they want to roll out there consistently. And you know what, he's shown that he can get a little bit of a tackle floor going for us. Again, talked about the splash play, which was great. We obviously don't count on helmet deflections into interceptions for touchdowns, but we love what we're getting out of it for now for Jerome Baker. And so, with that said, I think we can start playing him with a lot more confidence in that LB3 range. And then another gentleman who is kind of in that discussion of linebackers, especially at the start of the year, Andrew Van Ginkel. So even with Jalen Phillips back and healthy, and wonderful game for Jalen Phillips. Love seeing him healthy. I think 8 tackles, sacks. So great to have him back and healthy. But even that said, Van Ginkel, found a way to get back out there. Primarily used, as a pass rusher and rotating at that point. But David Long got hurt. They were able to shift Van Ginkel from edge rusher rotation into off-ball linebacker for some of those snaps. Long came back in, I believe, at one point maybe even. And so Van Ginkel is someone they seem to find a reason to put out there, and they have belief in him in the system. So maybe not someone, especially in a week with no buys and a full complement of players. But this is someone, if you got the ability to stash him, probably want to have that, because They might find reasons to use him in an off-ball role with a David Long injury. They're going to put him out there regardless, with everyone healthy and in rotation, so he's great for injuries or buys. And obviously, if Phillips gets hurt, he steps into that role where Phillips was. So kind of a lot of options and outs for him. So it's kind of more of a strategy play. Talking about Andrew Van Ginkel here, but just someone I think is worth noting on that Dolphins roster.
Yeah, that's a good call, man. Vic Fangio loves Van Ginkel, and he just is going to find ways to get him out there. And there's another guy you probably got off waivers right this year, and you're reaping the rewards. And was it a concussion with David Long, or am I getting that confused?
I want to say that sounds right. Yeah, yep, it was. Well,
concussion?
also knee, but he's in concussion protocol right now.
Okay.
Still.
Yeah, so I mean, if he's out, obviously it's better for Baker and that to see high volume, right? And Van Ginkel could see some extra off-ball snaps. So it's Vic Fangio just finding ways to get Van Ginkel on the field, and he's proving every week that he should just keep doing that because he keeps producing no matter where the hell he puts him. So really cool to see.
Right. All right, then moving into Atlanta, Tennessee. Another noon game here. What do we got on the Falcons side of the ball?
One of the best names in all of IDP, Nate Landman, tackle man, landman, linebacker for Atlanta. He's been stepping in since Troy Anderson went out a few weeks ago, and he's been outproducing Caden Ellis lately for us IDP gamers. Last 4 games for Landman, 84% snap share, 37 tackles, 21 solos. Been real productive of late. Love it. And he could be busy once again this week dealing with the big old freight train that is Derrick Henry. So, yeah, Landman's a fine play this week. He's playing well, and he'll have to stop the big man for Tennessee. And then I just wanted to talk about a few of the big guys along the Atlanta defensive line. First off, as an old washed-up dad myself, I got to give the old man Calais Campbell a little love here. Campbell has sacks in back-to-back games, and he recently notched his 100th career sack. Just pretty cool stuff at 37 years old, man. He's still getting it done. It's freaking awesome. And then David Onyemata along the interior. He's also been playing very well in his own right this season along the Atlanta interior defensive line. His pass rush metrics are real solid, and he's having a real nice year. The big fellas, these two guys, they take on Tennessee's poor offensive line in week 8. Exploitable matchup. Onyemata is the preferred choice between these two guys, in those true position or DT required leagues. But, Campbell's also on the radar in deeper leagues if, options are a little thin, and he does carry that DT tag. He doesn't necessarily line up as a DT per se like Onyemata does, more often, but he does have the tag on like MFL and stuff, and he's somebody you could plug in if you had to this week. But Onyemata would be the preferred choice, but Campbell's on the radar too. The old man's getting it done still, and as the kids say, you love to see it, right?
Well, cool. I was actually watching the game or the red zone update, whatever, when Campbell notched his 100th sack. I just thought that was so cool from a guy.
It's awesome.
I remember his big year was 2017 with the Jaguars, right? When he's like, player of the year consideration, all that stuff, or maybe even won it that year. But dude, and he's just such a good guy too. It seems like,
he's awesome.
I love it. All right. Well, on the Titans side, a new face since Kevin Byard got yeeted out of there. Since who knows what they're doing with these players anymore in Tennessee. But Terrell Edmonds steps into a defensive role where Byard played about 33% of it in the box and 22% in the slot, which we love to see our safeties playing up near the line of scrimmage. Edmonds played actually quite a bit in the box when he was with the Steelers prior to his time with the Eagles, but he wasn't necessarily efficient with that for us for IDP. So I don't know that I have a lot of excitement for Terrell Edmonds coming in here. He might be able to deliver us some value still. For this week, I'm going to hold off on putting him in there. New face, new system, new things. I know he's a veteran. He probably finds a way into the starting lineup or heavy into the rotation still, but I always have some hesitations in those first weeks. I want to let things kind of settle, let the dust settle, and get them situated there before I'm jumping into that at all. So Terrell Edmonds for me is a fade. Again, probably plenty of other options out there for us this week. One that I do really like this week, in a matchup against the Falcons, where linebackers generally tend to have pretty positive overall production. Jack Gibbons, obviously Aziz Al-Shaair, number one, been super active, piling up the tackles here prior to the bye week. But Jack Gibbons, really good, 16.8% tackle efficiency. Really, the big challenge is he's only playing about 70% of the snaps. So the question, is, will the snaps go up? Will the efficiency stay up? Will anything go down? Regression tends to tell us that it will likely go down over the course of the season. However, this week, again, the matchup I think is just too good against the Falcons. I think Gibbons gets plenty of snaps, even if it is only at a reduced rate at 70-ish percent. And I think he's going to, still deliver something in that 8 tackle range, which is in most formats, very, very valuable. So let's fire Gibbons up this week, in that LB3 range. But, maybe again, temper some of those expectations going down the line.
Yeah, it's I totally like that. I like the let's wait a little bit on Terrell Edmonds, like you said, let the dust settle. I'm the same way when stuff like this happens. If he's not a big name, right? Let's just see how that plays out. And yeah, Gibbons, man, he's been solid. He's another guy you probably got off the waiver wire, and he's giving you a nice production, right? He does pretty solid work with what he gets playing time wise. And like you said, let's keep an eye on what that looks like as we keep going here. But I like that Gibbons call as well.
All right. Then moving on to maybe a team close to Kyle's heart here in one of the matchups. We got the Vikings at the Packers, and I feel like I did you dirty here by taking the Packers. So
now
I'll give you your spotlight on them after I'm done talking. So you can take us through the Vikings.
Yeah, if you gave me the Packers, I'd never shut the hell up. So that's just a vet move on your part, brother. Yeah, so let's talk some Vikings. Let's talk about the Minnesota linebackers. It's Jordan Hicks and no one else right now. Unfortunately, Ivan Pace has played just 5 defensive snaps in week 7, and giving him just 17 defensive snaps over his last 2 games. And that makes me sad. Jake, I think it makes you sad too. You're an Ivan Pace guy as well, right?
I was a big supporter. I thought he landed in the perfect spot with Brian Flores, the blitz heavy schemes that he used, what he did at Cincinnati. Like, I was like, yes.
Yeah.
Only to have our hearts ripped out again.
Right, exactly, right. Yeah, so it's kind of over. Well, it's over for Pace. It's Jordan Hicks and no one else. But I mean, where are you at with Pace, like dynasty wise? I'm still fine with holding him. Right?
Yeah, I'm still holding him because you look at like even the RAS between like a Jordan Hicks and an Ivan Pace, like they kind of match in a lot of ways as well in terms of what they are and what they can or what they profile as. So I mean, Hicks has been a nice IDP, revelation for us this season. I don't know that that's going to be the case next year, where we could see Pace maybe step in to be that primary and only linebacker, assuming Flores' defense is still in place.
Right, and what is Hicks, 31-ish? Yeah. So yeah, and like you said before, talking about Pace, he fits Flores' schema, and I think Pace is built for IDP production. He's just an explosive guy who sees it well. He gets downhill. He's a thumper, and he can run too. And he's a splash play guy, man. If you look at his college production, he was making plays behind on like crazy. And Flores is aggressive, right? So anyway, enough Ivan Pace. We're sad it's not going to happen to redraft this year, but still holding out some hope in dynasty. So happy we're both there with it. So yeah, we're talking about one linebacker that's relevant for Minnesota. So we're going to roll over to Josh Metellus, who's technically a safety by designation. But Metellus has an 88% snap share in the year and played 100% snaps for the first time in week 7 as the Vikings deployed 3 safeties all game this week. Bynum's balling. Harrison Smith's doing Harrison Smith stuff. He's still getting it done. And now Metellus has a huge role, and he's been producing, and that's given us 3 viable safety options now in Minnesota. Metellus spends just about all his time up in that IDP sweet spot. He had a little bit, he had a big week 6, kind of a slower week 7, but that happens with a lot of players. He's getting solid volume, and he's in the right place to make plays up tight. So, yeah, all 3 of those guys are in consideration now each week. And one last thing, side note, as a Packer fan, I'm scared of Danielle Hunter this week. The dude's a wrecking ball, and our offensive line is just not good right now. So yeah, he should eat this week.
Yeah, I feel sorry for you, Jordan.
Yeah,
It's gonna be a long Sunday.
could be ugly. It's gonna
right?
be ugly. I shouldn't say could be. It's gonna be ugly. I'll be drunk, so whatever. Who cares?
What better way to deal with Danielle Hunter than to just have another one?
Yep, exactly.
Oh man. Well, on the Packers side, linebacker 2, Quay Walker clearly has become linebacker 1. A lot of people, this offseason were kind of high on him, really pushed up his dynasty value, and that seems to have been the right call. Now, we thought there would still be some really good value with Devondre Campbell as a primary linebacker too, still playing 90+% of the snaps. However, injuries have derailed this. And the question is who are we going to get this week? Is it going to be Campbell coming back out there full? Will he get out there at all? Is it fully Isaiah McDuffie then? Even with McDuffie, he's only played about 65% of the snaps, I think it was. But still led the team in tackles with 10 tackles as well. So, probably something where I don't want to count on that level of efficiency. It is a good matchup, a very pass heavy Vikings team and their zone heavy scheme for the Packers defense that they should be able to pile up tackles this week as well. I have a little reservation about McDuffie and Campbell being great plays this week overall. But if you got them in like that LB 3-4-ish range, I'm okay with you plugging them in there. But again, we'll see what kind of comes out of the injury reports here as we move through the week. Someone who has been relatively consistent for us on the back end of that Packers defense is Rudy Ford. Really been a strong tackling machine. Someone that showed out a bit at the end of last year with some injuries, that he can be IDP relevant and relevant for the Packers defense. I mean, not saying he's great. I'm sure Kyle would agree with that. But I mean, in terms of being able to, do some stat counting for us here, he's definitely stepped up and has that in place. So I'm actually good, getting him closer to that low end DB2, DB3 range for us at times here. And again, this Vikings pass happy offense, Justin Jefferson be damned. Like they're going to keep throwing this ball. So, we should see plenty there. And then just to call out, Darnell Savage, unfortunately hurt on a non-contact injury, and went to IR. So Jonathan Owens would be the one who'd step up next in that role. Got 40% box usage on the limited snaps last week. So again, is that, the McDuffie thing, if Campbell's there, I think it's a big personnel question. I don't think we want to buy too much into a very small sample size like that. That is kind of the role he played in Houston when he was there. So just maybe a name to keep in mind, or if you got the ability to stash him, might be someone we want to go out and take a look at as well for those deeper leagues.
Yeah, love the call with the safeties. It's a good matchup, right? Minnesota's a good matchup for safeties. Rudy Ford's a solid play this week, and Jonathan Owens is probably sitting on a lot of waiver wires in a lot of leagues, and he's going to play a bunch, and it's a good matchup. So yeah, he could be somebody that's relevant this week for sure. And Savage is going to be out a while. I'm with you. Like I think Campbell got some limited work in today. I don't know what his outlook's going to be. Green Bay's pretty conservative with injuries. And like you were talking about, like, what does this look like when everybody's back? And I have a lot of questions with Joe Barry's deployments, alignments lately. But that's a whole different conversation that would probably take way too freaking long. But let's keep an eye on what the linebacker snaps look like, and if Campbell's going to be a go this week.
All right. Well, moving into our final noon matchup, we got the Los Angeles Rams at the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, so the first guy I want to talk about for the Rams is Ernest Jones. Jones has been dealing with a knee injury, and he's seen his snap shares drop a little bit. He is 78% in week 6 and 81% in week 7 after playing every snap the first 5 games. It'll be tough to sit Jones. But the knee injury and slight snap reduction is certainly less than ideal. So, Jones's health and snap share is something to just monitor again this week, as they are potentially managing his workload. Young player, he's a big part of the defense. They probably don't want to just run him ragged if he's down a little bit, right? So yeah, just something to keep in mind. A little bit of dip there in Snapshare with that knee injury. And then these edge rushers, Michael Hecht, Hoyt, Mecht, I don't know what's his name. I have no idea. But Byron Young, the rookie, both these pass rushers, crazy volume, right? They both have 88% snap shares on the year. That's just hefty workloads. Hector Hoyt had a nice week 7. He recorded 2 sacks against Pittsburgh. Although if I had to choose one, if I had to pick one to roll out this week, I'd probably lean Young just because his pressure number is a little more promising. But he's more of an option in leagues where you start 3 to 4 defensive linemen. Same for Hoyt or Hecht. But just those guys see a ton of snaps. We talked about it with Jennings, for the pages before volume. These guys see a lot of volume too. Just really want, more importantly of these two things, I'm curious what Ernest Jones, I'm just kind of wondering what that knee, how bad is he hurt? Just seeing them snap shares drop like that. So.
Right. Yeah, it's right. Is it precautionary because the Rams have been competitive this season, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you want him for the long haul. It's really, I feel like it's got to be that because, Christian Roseboom is who you're going to behind that.
Yeah.
So I just hope he gets a fully healthy week here, and we can get back to a full complement of snaps. And I love Byron Young. I was looking at his numbers earlier today.
Yeah.
And hasn't had a game with less than 3 pressures for this season.
Nice.
Again, he's got the snap volume, like you said. So there's a little bit of, some caveat, I guess. But there's guys that play similar numbers too, and they have games where they get only 1 or 2 or less pressures. So
and he's just a rookie,
right? So I think he's an older rookie though, right? Like he's like 24, almost 25. So
yep.
I definitely think there's is that age curve for defensive linemen.
Yeah.
Because you're a young man battling, grown men basically.
Yeah. Large men.
You're right. So, but I love the Byron Young call, and I like what we might have for him, going forward in terms of dynasty too. So,
I'm with you.
All right. Well, then on to the Dallas Cowboys side, Jaron Kearse. We love the utilization. We love the alignment. We just aren't a huge fan of the production so far. Definitely been a little bit down so far this year. Only 20 total tackles on the season. He did give us 1 week with a sack and another with an interception. So we had at least some splash plays to kind of prop up some of those lower tackle floor weeks overall here. But you know what? I think this is a week where we can see a rebound for him. We see that tackle floor kind of solidify and really just a stronger overall production for him going forward week to week. So trust the process, great alignment, great utilization generally tend to lead us to great results. Just a little bit of positive regression is what we're looking for here. Then Damone Clark stepped into the lead linebacker role with Leighton Vander Esch going to the IR. And something that kind of surprised me a little bit was he took 71 out of the 72 of the snaps. Dan Quinn in this defense, even when he had Leighton Vander Esch, didn't always necessarily run him out there, that 98, 100% type range. So seeing Damone Clark get that treatment here early on was a nice little confidence boost just to say, I think you can trust him as the lead linebacker there, as well as, you can probably have him pretty confidently in that LB 3-4 range. Maybe if he's able to do a lot with his volume, maybe it goes a little higher, right? But I'm going to temper expectations now just because, it is Damone Clark, who wasn't able to beat out LVE before this. So, but again, just some positive trends and kind of notes to keep track of there. And lastly, one of the names I've seen floating around in the IDP circles quite a bit, Marquise Bell. He was essentially the second linebacker, right? So he was playing that Damone Clark role, that will linebacker, and was technically a starter in week 6, but only played 39 of the snaps, right, of the 72 out there. So not great, but he did manage to log 7 tackles in that time. So very, very efficient with it. But I think the thing that I like most about this is on most platforms, Marquise Bell actually qualifies or is designated as a safety or a defensive back. So if all of a sudden Bell's snaps even start to creep up anywhere close to that 70-ish% range, and now all of a sudden you can start a 70%, off ball linebacker in one of your safety slots. That's kind of a nice little advantage we can get there. So not necessarily big on the talent or the player per se. I think it's a little bit of kind of game manipulation here playing on our platforms, but I like it, and I just kind of want to call it out because I'm guessing you guys are listening not because of our sweet, soothing, savory voices, but because you want to win your matchups. So I'd like to throw little thoughts out there like that for you guys.
No, it's great stuff, man. I like the Bell call as well. It could be a little cheat code, right? Love to see him get a little more run too. Yeah, I'm with you on Damone Clark too. I was a little surprised, right? 71 to 72 snaps. Figured he would see the majority of the snaps. Just linebacker wise, just looking at that depth chart, it's pretty ugly after Van Der Esch went down. But yeah, so it's encouraging, that kind of volume for sure. Something to keep an eye on. And then Marquise Bell, Jaron Kearse comes up, and then Donovan Wilson comes up uptight too. So it's kind of a fun looking defense too, bringing up those guys, got a lot of speed. I like the Belichick in it with that cheat code with Bell, man. If he keeps getting some snaps, if he gets in that 70% range, you can play him at DB or safety. It's a nice play.
Well, thank you. Yeah.
Hey, you're more than just good looks, brother. Right? Beautiful mind too.
I love it. All right, moving on to the Browns and Seahawks. First of our afternoon matchups, Cleveland Browns. That defense. What are we looking at?
First thing is the Cleveland linebackers. What a mess. It's a freaking mess. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, JOK had been seeing, a steady snap share. He had 79% in back-to-back games, I think it was. So just a shade under 80%, but he was generally in that high 60, 70% range. Not full-time, but steady. And then he was productive. He was starting to give us some nice numbers too. He had 5 tackles for loss over his last few games to go along with some tackles sprinkled in. So he was starting to get a little momentum going. And then he played a season low 49%. 49% snap share this past week. Anthony Walker, however, saw his first 100% snap share of the year this week. Tony Fields even popped up with 32 defensive snaps, which was his season high by far this week. What is happening, Jake? What the hell is happening in Cleveland? Sione Takitaki was out this week with a hamstring injury. So if he returns, this gets even muddier as we roll into week 8. It's a freaking mess. I mean, if you had to choose one, it'd probably be Walker after he just played every snap, but Taki coming back could negate some of that. I don't know. I don't feel great about any of it. How about you, man? I don't know what to think of this.
I'm with you. It's I've said it in this pod quite a few times. I generally tend to stay away from this linebacker room just over the last year and a half now.
Yeah.
But you know what? I like what they've redone with that defensive line. That if we can really get 100% of Walker, or shoot even 90 to 95%, I'm actually okay with him as a an LB 3-4 type range type play.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because they've managed to stay clean and actually be some more level consistent playmakers in the run defense. But gosh darn it, if it isn't just it's a headache trying to figure it all out. And I'd really rather not be forced to make that decision if I don't have to.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm with you, man. It's ugly. Ugh. You were talking about the defensive line. So let's talk about a guy on that defensive line, Zadarius Smith. Smith finally notched his first sack of the season against Indianapolis in week 7. Smith's play has been fine. He holds a 66% snap share on the year. He just hasn't put a digit in the sack column until now. He's playing fine. Just it is what it is. But he got there this week. Hopefully this gets some momentum going. Seattle isn't the greatest matchup, but this Cleveland defense is good, and it never hurts when Myles Garrett is playing opposite you. And he was just the man this past week, right? Just blow up game. He's awesome. So yeah, Zadarius Smith, it's good to see him, like I said, put a number in that sack column this week. Finally, his play's been fine. He gets enough volume. It's just, he got it done. Maybe we'll see him get a little bit more here.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And that's Zadarius Smith was someone I was in kind of a lot this year, right? I picked up in a lot of leagues.
Yep.
That's the game, man. I one of the things I always look at when looking at defensive line matchups is, what is the time to throw for a quarterback, right? And it's when you look at the measures, right? Like who are the bottom ones, who are the top ones, and it's like 0.4 seconds, 0.3 seconds difference.
Yeah.
I mean that's why someone can be playing great, like Zadarius Smith has, or been playing good, and they're not notching the sacks because the game is that close, right? We're talking tenths of a second difference between the sack and just, a hurry or maybe even a quarterback hit.
Yep, absolutely, man.
But moving on to the Seahawks side of the ball, Jamal Adams, welcome back, sir. 100% snap count. In 34 of the 66 inside the box. Was able to notch 6 tackles with that. 4 pass rush opportunities along the defensive line. Jamal Adams back to IDP relevance? ? Seems like it's possible.
Seems so.
Yeah. I mean, so if we're going to see this kind of deployment for him, I don't know how you can't be excited to plug him into your linebacker. He's playing like a linebacker, plugging him back into your lineup.
Yeah.
Along that safety or defensive back position. But his running mate, Julian Love, 60 snaps as well. So, those two aren't, be cannibalizing into each other. Julian Love didn't obviously play as much in the box with Jamal Adams there. But really the number that I was looking at or stood out to me then was Jordan Brooks down to 46 snaps. He was someone that the Jamal Adams situation, along with Jordan Brooks' ACL recovery, had me very out on him. But I think the larger narrative always circled around the ACL recovery. And he proved that he could outplay that, at least, to this point for IDP purposes. Now with Jamal Adams back, I am quite concerned about what Jordan Brooks can deliver ceiling wise for us, right? He's always been an efficient tackler. The Seahawks have always been an efficient zone heavy scheme for tackling as well. That I don't think that Brooks becomes completely irrelevant now, but we do want to limit expectations, because if he's going to go from a near 100% to closer to a 65, 70, 75%, and you also have another athlete, a high-end athlete, stud player in Jamal Adams competing in that space with him, again, let's just lower expectations a little bit maybe for Jordan Brooks moving forward. And lastly, Uchenna Nwosu, unfortunately, a torn pectoral, likely out for the season according to coach. Haven't seen anything official with him on IR yet, but just based on injury timelines, that makes sense that he would be done for the season. Darrell Taylor is the next man up, so you should see snap counts go up there. There's Boye Mafe and some of the other people, rotational pieces, but no one that's done enough for me to stand out. If you're in a situation where you got to play these guys, you can probably expect a little bit better volume or opportunities. I don't necessarily know that we're excited about anyone talent or efficiency wise yet at this point.
Yeah, bummer Nwosu got hurt, man. That sucks. But yeah, I'm with you too. Like Taylor, you should see a little bump here in snaps. I like your call. Is not a great play this week, and here, like, right, everybody's playing this week. You could probably look elsewhere for a stream. And then, dude, you nailed it. Like, Jamal Adams is back right now, right, while he's healthy. So that Jamal Adams, Julian Love, Jordan Brooks situation, something to keep an eye on. Julian Love's snaps took a dip, then they went up. Brooks' snaps just took a little dip. So it's just something to kind of keep an eye on week to week here as we go. When all three are healthy, it's just something you're going to pay attention to.
Yep. All right, moving on. We have the Chiefs at the Broncos. Another divisional matchup here. I think this is the third time in 2 weeks for these guys squaring off. So got some recency to play off of here. But what are we looking at on the Chiefs side?
The big news is Nick Bolton dislocated wrist. Such a bummer. He's out 8 weeks, 2 months. It sucks, right? We just got him back, and Nick Bolton's going to be out. So, such a bummer. Should be back for the playoffs, from what I heard, right? So, but anyway, we're here to win games for IDP during the fantasy season, and that means Drew Tranquill is probably going to be relevant here once again. He took over after Bolton exited, and he's back to a priority waiver wire ad this week. Tranquill slid into that lead role early this year when Bolton was dealing with an ankle injury. He's likely to be the guy to replace him once again. He was productive when he slid in for him last time. When Bolton came back, Tranquill went back to a limited role, and then in week 6 and then week 7, it was looking that way. And then obviously Bolton went down, and then he came in and slid right in for him. So yeah, Drew Tranquill, fire him up now. he should be the guy, to take over that lead role. Then Charles Omenihu returned from suspension in week 7. He played 32 snaps, 51% snap share right out the gate, 4 pressures, and he recorded a sack in his debut. So nice showing right out the gate for Omenihu. He's an interesting name to keep in mind in deeper leagues. Denver has allowed 20 sacks so far this season. So, I mean, if you're stuck in deeper leagues and you want to see if lightning can strike again, hey, why not, right? And Omenihu's probably sitting around on quite a few waiver wires. So,
former Houston Texans.
Former Houston
Charles.
Texans. Yeah. You know that guy.
Oh, yeah. Moving on to the Broncos side. Kareem Jackson seemingly can't stop targeting defenseless receivers. So that said, he's suspended for 4 games. PJ Locke is who stepped in the middle of the game. It appears he will likely be the next man up with the suspension as well. So again, really looking at deeper leagues if you're in a need for PJ Locke as a defensive back. But some people have those situations, or if you have the roster capability to stash him, might be someone you want to consider with some actual bye weeks looming in the next few weeks here for us. One name I wanted to call out really was Zach Allen. I loved what he's done so far this year. He's had a nice run over those last 4 games, 16 pressures, 3 sacks, 15 tackles. But I hyped that up to say I'm not overly excited for him this week against the Kansas City Chiefs. Chiefs have one of the better offensive lines as a unit overall, and Patrick Mahomes is some sort of wizard when it comes to escaping the pocket and pressure. So, that said, I think Jonathan Cooper had 6 pressures and 1 sack 2 weeks ago in this matchup. I'm still not looking to play these guys. If you're in a pinch and you need to play a Jonathan Cooper, a Nick Benito, or a Zach Allen, I'm okay with that. Zach Allen, I like maybe a little bit better overall. Just I think he's got a better tackle floor compared to those other guys. And now Baron Brown's coming back too and starting to get back into that rotation. So that might eat away at some of the things where they're not necessarily any great floors in terms of actual snap counts on those edge positions for the Broncos. So this week I'm not playing unless we're breaking the glass for emergencies.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, man. It's like you said, Mahomes is a wizard avoiding sacks. It's something else, and it's not a great match for these guys. If you have to, you have to, but not ideal, right? And then I just I'm pissed at Kareem Jackson for hurting my guy Luke Musgrave. That sucks, man. I had Musgrave rolling in a few leagues, and I'm a Packer fan. I like the guy, and that sucked. Go ahead.
Well, and former Houston Texans Kareem Jackson.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
They actually drafted him in the first round, whatever it was, like 12 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, once an accident, twice, okay. The third time, this is a pattern, right? And I'm not saying Kareem Jackson's a terrible person. I'm just saying the style of play just isn't matching up with how the game is meant to be played anymore. So,
yes.
It's just disappointing to see from the health of the players, to the people missing time for whatever reason, injuries or suspension. So, but anyways, moving on to the Bengals at the 49ers. Cincinnati, what are we rolling with on the defensive side there?
For the Bengals, Dax Hill. Dax Hill has been balling this year, and San Francisco has been a real solid matchup for opposing safeties. And Cameron Bynum just happened to pick off Brock Purdy twice on Monday night. Interceptions are far from a sticky or predictable stat, but just go get you some this week, Dax Hill. He's playing great. It's a good matchup. Rolling him out. I'm excited to see what he can do. Brock Purdy is in concussion protocol, by the way, right? So he could pick off Sam Darnold instead, whatever. But yeah, nice matchup for Dax Hill. He's playing really well. And then Trey Hendrickson. Brock Purdy's been sacked only 12 times this year, but if you look at the Footballguys points allowed tool we have, San Francisco has been a pretty nice matchup for defensive line as far as points allowed via Footballguys scoring. So it's not a bad matchup, and Hendrickson's having himself a strong year. 7 sacks in his first 6 games. Hendrickson, I think, he's on the DE Edge 2 range this week in this big afternoon game. So.
Nice. Yeah, I like that. Dax Hill was someone I was very excited about this year, especially
Yeah,
with the Bates and Bell departure. So I love that he's lived up to at least to my billing. So yeah, hopefully that continues here. And I think it's very likely to.
yeah,
On the 49ers side, Oren Burks, the forgotten linebacker in
yes.
San Francisco. So he continues to be an efficiency monster, 6 tackles on 28 snaps. But the reason I want to call him out, right, is I just want people who sometimes, and we're all busy, right? So we can get caught box score hunting sometimes in matchups and looking for people to add on to our rosters. You just be careful, right, with what you're expecting here from him. I think we really need to treat him more as that handcuff linebacker, or if you're in really deep leagues where you're starting 5 linebackers type things or larger team numbers overall. You're in 16 team leagues, 24 team leagues, whatever it is. So, uh, but if Greenlaw or Warner were ever to get hurt, he'd step in immediately, and I think we would continue to see strong production from him. Maybe not at the same level of efficiency, but to a point where he's very, very relevant for us. So, and heck, Greenlaw and Warner both got hurt this last game. Now it
Yeah.
was for short periods of time. They were off the field for only several plays, but I mean that's the game that's played, unfortunately, and so that's something we got to keep in mind and consideration there.
Former Packer too, Oren Burks.
There it is. I like where this is going. Then Javon Hargrave. I really think that the Bengals, as much as Joe Burrow has improved with his health and the mobility in the pocket and stuff has been better, that offensive line still has holes. They still have concerns, and I do believe that Nick Bosa has, while he's only notched a couple sacks so far this year, the presence that he's done and the way he's won his matchups and the disruption he's caused. I think Hargrave is going to have an opportunity to see some very advantageous matchups on the interior of that Bengals front and interior, and that's kind of where they've really struggled. Ted Karras has had a 51.1 PFF grade this year in pass blocking, and Volson's had a 25.9.
Wow.
So I can't help but see Javon Hargrave causing some havoc back there for the Cincinnati Bengals. And I'd like to think that this is where we see him notch another sack for himself this season. So
Yeah, I like that. I like that Colin Hargrave, man.
Yeah. And I love the Sam Darnold reference or call out too, because we're going to be this game's going to be played on October 28th or 29th. What is it? The 29th. That's awfully close
Yeah.
to Halloween, and there's a lot of ghosts around Halloween. So, I mean, Sam Darnold might be seeing ghosts.
Well done, my friend. Yeah. Javon Hargrave is that ghost. Let's go. I like that call, man. That's yeah. I mean, you look at that, like you said, the matchups with those grades on Karras and Volson, and it's there for the taking, right? So, yep.
All right, moving on to our last afternoon matchup on Sunday. We got the Baltimore Ravens at the Arizona Cardinals.
So for the Ravens, pass rusher Odafe Owe. Owe made his return after missing the past 4 games with an ankle injury. It was a really good return for Owe. He played 40 snaps, 53% snap share. He got home for a sack, forced a fumble, and he generated 4 pressures against the tough Detroit offensive line. Really, really nice first game back for Owe. And this Ravens pass rush group has been banged up all year. They brought in Kyle Van Noy off the couch. He's actually been fine. He had a couple sacks himself. But yeah, they've been beat up all year. So getting Owe back's nice, and he could be a nice waiver add down the stretch. And he's a solid play this week against Arizona. So nice return for Owe. If you can scoop him up and need a pass rusher, why not? Next guy, Justin Madubuike. Man, this guy, he's having an excellent year. 5.5 sacks on the year, 4.5 of those sacks coming in his last 4 games. This is a contract year for Madubuike, so the timing is absolutely beautiful, right? The guy's absolutely balling at the perfect time to get himself paid. Just keep firing up in those DT required leagues and true position leagues because the dude's balling, and you can use them in DL formats too, right? If you're starting 4 of those and you need a guy, Madubuike is getting it done. But yeah, just keep rolling him out. If you have him in those DT leagues, you're super happy, and he's looking to get paid here, man. He's absolutely getting it done, and it's awesome. Love to see it. I got him in quite a few spots, and I'm super pumped about it.
Right. Well, yeah, and I know he's Johnny the Greek's one of his favorites too, right? So,
Yeah, oh yeah,
uh,
That's Johnny's boy right there.
Yep. So he doesn't just know cornerbacks. He knows a few other things as well. So
Johnny knows a thing or two about a lot of things.
On the Cardinals side, Kayvon Wallace out, and not just out of the starting lineup, but out of the building. Actually waived by the team, which this is wow. Fickle times, I guess there. But anyway, so yeah, Wallace out. Andre Chachere in, and he was playing a bit before with Buda Baker out as well. But with Kayvon Wallace out, Chachere in, and Buda Baker back. Chachere was actually the one who led the team in tackles this last week. So, this has a lot to do with why we talk about waiting on defensive backs because this is the exact type of thing we can find week to week inside of our seasons here, right? That's why I switched to late round DB on Twitter because that's what we need to be doing, folks, right?
Yeah.
Kayvon Wallace was someone you could have picked up. Now Andre Chachere is someone you can pick up. We talked about Jonathan Owens earlier, and there's just the list goes on and on, right? So, not to say that you can't get some of those bigger names in some formats in some way, but just keep that in mind here because this is what we get. So, it'll be interesting to see what happens when Jalen Thompson comes back healthy. He had been manning primarily the slot defender role. So what a Baker, Chachere, Thompson deployment looks like, we'll have to pay attention to and see. But I think again, Chachere is someone we can pick up in those deeper leagues. Obviously, Baker has a high level of talent. We're plugging him into our lineups pretty regularly now that he's back and getting a full complement of snaps as well. So. Then one name I want to bring up that I was very excited about him coming in, 3 years ago. Zaven Collins, actually starting to put together some games now. He's produced 5 pressures, actually showing the ability to win his pass rush sets as well. He was previously as recently as 2 or 3 games ago. He was at 0% for pass rush sets won on the season. He's up to 9% now. Now I know 9% feels like not that great, but when you were at 0% before, that's actually a pretty good measurable jump overall.
Yeah.
He did not just sack last week, but I'm pretty sure it was an unblocked one, right, where they tried to set up the bootleg and Collins either read it or guessed it perfectly and was able to get home for the sack. But for someone whom I was super high on, I'm just excited to see him start to put together some actual production as a pass rusher. I'm not calling here for you to go out and grab him or even stash him necessarily, but let's start to pay attention a little bit closer to what he's doing, and maybe who knows, maybe we actually end up putting together a usable defensive end here for ourselves with Zaven Collins by year's end.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I like Zaven Collins too. I was a big fan of him coming out of Tulsa. It's been a up and down start for him here, to say the least, in Arizona. But he's transitioning off the edge. It hasn't been great to start, like you said. He started at 0, but he's working his way up to 9% on his win rate. Maybe it's going to take a little time. All pass rushers do take some time. He's transitioning. Maybe we'll see some nice progress. We'll see that arrow keep going up, and he'll turn into a nice asset. And also, I just want to say how proud of you I am for tackling the name Chachere like 5 or 6 times there. That was impressive because I have no freaking idea how to say that correctly before we started here. So good for you, buddy.
Okay, well, you just keep that in mind as I try and pronounce someone for my next matchup here. So, speaking of that next matchup, we got our Sunday night matchup. We got the Chicago Bears at the Los Angeles Chargers.
Yeah, so for the Bears, first guy to talk about here is TJ Edwards. Edwards had a down week 7, to say the least. Recorded just 2 solo tackles on the day. He played 60 snaps, good for a 92% snap share. So he played plenty, his normal hefty role. Just one of those weeks, happens every once in a while. Edwards should be fine, but he has a less than ideal matchup against the Chargers this week. He's probably more of an LB3 type in week 8. But I mean, I know Edwards has been a set it guy if you drafted him right. One of those names you're just putting in your lineup. But seeing such a big down week, people might be like, oh, what did he play? What happened? Whatever. He played. Just one of those weeks. It happens from time to time. So yeah, he was out there plenty. Not a great matchup this week either. more of an LB3, but just know the volume was there again for Edwards like it has been. So hopefully he just gets back on track this week. But hey, this happens from time to time. And then the Chicago cornerbacks. Chargers are an excellent matchup for CBs. Rookie Tyreek Stevenson was targeted 17 times in week 7 against Las Vegas. That's freaking insane, man. Is that the rookie corner rule playing opposite Jalen Johnson? Could be. Well, he had 2 picks himself, right?
I think so. Yeah,
I think he did. So yeah, they were picking on Stevenson. So that's a lot of action. 17 targets. Kyler Gordon snaps ramped up to 75% in week 7, playing the nickel role. He saw just 61% in his first game back from IR in week 6. All these guys are options in deeper CB required leagues against Los Angeles. And once again, I'm going to plug Johnny's Cornerback Corner article. Go look at it if you want anything cornerback related. Best thing out there.
Yeah, it is. It really is. And that's the thing. Like, don't even just like, oh, I'm not in a cornerback required league. Like when you get to your week 7s and your week 13s and there's 6 teams on bye, and you're like, shoot, I need to plug something into my defensive back. And you're like, well, my lead, you're on sleeper, right? And everyone's just piling up safeties in there. It's like, well, shoot, I can go out here and I can find a Tyreek Stevenson who I can plug in.
17 targets.
Right. And heck, maybe doesn't just keep your floor in place. He goes out and outperforms, and now all of a sudden you got a top 15 type play because you went ahead and you're utilizing all the assets that are available to you.
Absolutely.
So
it's a great call, man.
All right. Well, speaking of great calls, let me talk about the Chargers. Tuiapulotu.
It's pretty good.
I don't know.
Where goes it?
Double T.
Yeah.
All right.
So much easier.
Yeah, right. So even with Bosa and Mack back there, he was still seeing 40-ish snaps last week and was producing, a strong 13.2% pass rush pressure rate so far, a 12% win rate in pass rush sets. And really, I think this is an overall very positive matchup for the Chargers defensive front as a whole. But Double T, I think, is someone who in some of those deeper formats we can definitely be looking at, as well as then, I think I've talked a lot about, hey, these are guys that have, deeper stash values or bye week type values, but also if a Joey Bosa does get hurt again, right? Someone he's notoriously been unavailable at times. He can step up and give us a lot of great value there too. But this week against the Chicago Bears, Tyler Bagent. I don't know, one of those two. I can't say the easy names right, but I can go ahead and I can get all the other ones good. He's only had 47 dropbacks, right, in his short NFL career here. He's been pressured on 15 of them. So you're talking about 1 out of every 3 times this guy drops back, he's got some sort of defensive pressure in his face. I think the Chargers are able to capitalize on that. So you should be firing up most of your Chargers defensive front this week in a very favorable matchup. But keep an eye on Double T, stashing them if you're not already looking for things like that.
Yeah, it's I love the Double T. I think that's got to stick. It's so much easier, man.
All right. Well, we've made it all the way to the end here. Our Monday night matchup, the Raiders at the Lions. Who are we looking at for Las Vegas?
There is no way I cannot talk about the beautiful man that is Max Crosby with about 12 X's on the screen for my notes because he's earned every one of them. Max Crosby's awesome. We mentioned him earlier about his crazy volume. Well, he has crazy production too because the guy is a freaking animal. You want to have fun playing IDP? Well, draft Max Crosby on your team and just watch him play. It's so damn fun. It's probably not fun when he's playing your team, but if he's on your fantasy team, you're fine with it because he's getting you points, right? But Crosby's awesome. If I'm ever talking Raiders, he's gonna come up because I love the guy. He's just awesome. He's fun to watch and he's fun to have on your roster. Moving on from the Love Fest, Luke Masterson, linebacker. Divine Diablo suffered an ankle injury in week 7 and he was unable to return. I haven't seen anything new today. I was busy and whatnot, so let's keep an eye on the updates on how severe his injury is. I don't know if you saw anything, Jake.
Not yet.
Okay. So Diablo, after he left, Luke Masterson came in. He played 44 snaps, 62%. and recorded 5 tackles and a pass defended. If Diablo misses time, Masterson is on the deep league radar if you need a guy next to Robert Spillane. We've seen Masterson pop up last year. He was an undrafted free agent, like Wake Forest, I believe, or whatever. All of a sudden, who's this guy? And he was on the IDP radar for a little while for us last year as well. So he looks like Diablo's replacement if you're looking for a guy in those real deep leagues. If Diablo's out. And then a little rookie watch here, Tyree Wilson. He got home for his first sack, first sack of his career in week 7. Encouraging sign for Wilson, but he's not quite someone to consider yet for your lineup. I'm interested to track his progress, and this is obviously a step in the right direction. Getting home for a sack, that's getting some too, I guess. Yeah, just I'm going to be eager to see his progress as the year goes on. He had a slow start to the year with foot injury in camp and whatnot, so he didn't get to kick things off right away. And pass rushers take time, but yeah. So like you had mentioned earlier, box score chasing and whatnot, right? Wilson finally got one. I think he was in the high 30% snap range, so not like crazy volume or anything, but like positive sign. I'm not ready to put him in your lineup yet by any means, but yeah, just really good, especially the lines, offensive line's real solid. So just something to keep an eye on to see how he carries on this year as he hopefully gets a little more a run as we go.
Yep, no, I agree. And so, yeah, unfortunately, we don't have any news on the Raiders side yet with Diablo and Masterson because they are the Monday night game. So they don't have to report their first day of practice, injury report stuff until Thursday. So, if you got Diablo, you should definitely be trying to roster Masterson at some point. So, on a Monday night like that, you can pivot away from that because otherwise, you're going to be left in a precarious situation, to say the least.
It's a great call. Yep. Monday night game. You got to make sure you have options.
Yep. All right. Last one, Detroit Lions. Is it Jack Campbell's season finally? Question mark?
Exclamation point, question mark.
All right. Yeah. It's exciting to see 54 out of 60 snaps, 6 tackles, log the pressure. The biggest thing that's concerning to me is that literally half of his snaps, 27 of them, did come along the defensive line. Now, they faced a very unique opponent in the Baltimore Ravens that have Lamar Jackson. So was this game plan specific? Was it specific because they wanted him out on the field and this is how they wanted to use him in this matchup? Was he on the field because of the matchup? So all those things to say, I am super pumped for Jack Campbell. My call out or my belief is that after week 9, when they have their bye week, is when we'd see Jack Campbell instituted as a full-time linebacker in that defense. I'm holding off on week 8 here just for a little bit. I'm one of the biggest Jack Campbell believers there is, but I do think we just need to temper expectations just because of the uniqueness of how he was deployed. If you're pumped and you want him in your lineup, I mean, hey, this is a game and we're about having fun and you want to watch your guy go out there. I don't have any concerns with that. Just my personal process is, because of the uniqueness of how he was out there, I just want to make sure, we know what the deployment or utilization for him is going forward. So, just one bald man's thoughts to those wise listeners out there. So, speaking of, interesting deployments or something to kind of watch, Brian Branch came back, but only played 50 snaps. So again, same thing. I was talking to the great John Macri before this. Is that because of the personnel usage, right? So, and that was kind of the big thing he pointed out. The Ravens run almost 0-11 personnel, right? Like at least in this matchup. And, so was that the case? Was it easing him back in? So coming back from his injury for Brian Branch, same thing. Lions got one more week and then a bye week. I could see something where they limit Branch's opportunities out there. So just be careful. Again, full slate of things out there. Go stream cornerbacks from Johnny's article, something else. I love Brian Branch as a talent. I just think we hold off until we see them back from their bye week and know that he's going to get, again, a full complement of snaps the way he had been to start the season. And lastly, because I love the guy, like you love Max Crosby, I love me some Aiden Clutchinson, as I like to call him.
I like it.
Unfortunately, he wasn't clutch enough to help the Lions deal with the shellacking they got. But yeah, so that's it. We did it, Kyle. We got through 16 matchups, but we're not done yet.
Oh man, there's more. Hey, I'm down.
There's more.
I got nothing to do.
Work is for the weak.
It is, man. I don't like to work.
Yeah, I don't either. We got to make this a full-time job.
Right. Yeah, that works. That's overrated, man.
This and golf somehow.
Yeah, we'll make it happen.
All right. Well, we got a Q&A segment, so let's jump into that. A much smaller set this week, so feel free to get really deep into your thoughts here, Kyle Bellefeuil. But to start, we got Donald S. coming in with a couple of questions. First one, need you to start 2 here. So he drafted CJ Mosley and Bobby Wagner, but he's went ahead and picked up Quincy Williams. So I think what Donald's really trying to get at here is, could he truly start CJ Mosley and Quincy Williams?
Hey, man, there's nothing wrong with that. Both guys are rock solid, man. Real good options. This is a great problem to have. This is 3 really good linebackers, man. I love it. It's good work getting all 3 of them. Well done, Donald S. That's it. I have nothing wrong with playing both Jets guys if you really want to, right? They're both super productive guys. But Bobby Wagner is still super productive, even at 33 years old. He's still getting it done. He plays Cleveland this week. Solid matchup for linebackers. So I'm probably going to roll out B-Wags, and I'm going to side with the other older veteran, CJ Mosley, but honestly, you can't really go wrong with either of those guys. So I would go B-Wags, Mosley, but I have nothing against rolling Quincy Williams out at all. So,
yep, I'm totally with you. I think I would put Bobby Wagner out there and then one of the 2. What it feels like to me, honestly, is I think you're gonna have the same floor from both of them. Yep. The only real difference is one of them going to fall into a bigger play, and not like fall into like they're not talented enough to make the play on their own type thing or whatever that needs luck. I think that would be the big difference maker, right? And you've mentioned a couple times, like, interceptions and some of those other types of big plays, fumble recoveries, especially, like, these aren't things we can count on, and they're not things that are easily predictable. So, I think if you got a gut call, Donald, roll with either one of them. But I would also go Bobby Wagner, and then either Mosley or Williams. You're good either way.
It's a great problem to have.
Agreed. All right. Well, so then he needs a little bit of DB help because he was smart and he picked up Kayvon Wallace while he was relevant, but he's not very relevant this week. So he's got some options along the DB side. Where should he go? Jabril Peppers, Trayvon Merrick, Reed Blankenship, or Grant Delpit?
So Reed Blankenship was dealing with a rib injury.
Sounds right.
Yeah, I know he didn't play last week. He's got a rib injury. I think he's been practicing, but like I got these guys all pretty close. And if somebody's banged up like that with a rib injury or any kind of injury that they could, even if he plays, could potentially re-aggravate, I'll just side with caution and go a different route, right? Just to take that out of the equation, unless it's like a super crazy matchup. And Philly draws who this week? Washington. Anyway, but yeah, I mean, I'm probably gonna go against playing Blankenship just because he's dinged up. Take that out of the equation. Jabril Peppers has been pretty solid lately. They play Miami. Should keep him decently busy. I think he's got like 16 tackles over his last couple of games. I have him in a couple spots. He's been playing pretty well. And, Grant Delpit, he gets more of that box roll. I like Delpit. Merrick's been better this year. He's getting a little more ideal alignment, getting up a little closer this year instead of playing just deep, like he had in the past. So he's been way more productive, for us IDP wise this year. But of these 4, I'd probably go Peppers and Delpit.
Yep. So to me, I love the thought process that you just walked us through. That was perfect. I agree. Those are the 2. I feel like I'm gonna lean Peppers over Delpit. If Donald really needs us to split hairs there, but it's not by much, at least for me. I really like the matchup against Miami this week for him, and I think Peppers has been in some really strong alignment and utilizations as well. So has Delpit, but I don't know.
Yeah.
To give a number one name, that's where I would fall.
I apologize. I thought he needed 2. He only needs 1.
I think he just needs 1, but I mean,
I'm going Peppers too.
All right, there it is.
I am. Yeah, Peppers was my number 1, and then I was kind of that was my fault. I thought I needed 2 of those linebackers and 2 of those, but I would go with Peppers this week too. A little bit better matchup too against Miami.
Nice. All right, and last one, we got Kai's question. Again, a great situation to be in, but he needs to start 2: Brian Burns, Carl Granderson, or Chase Young.
I like all 3 of these guys, and it's a nice problem to have. Chase Young doesn't have a great matchup against Philly, but I have a hard time sitting a guy like Chase Young. He's like been in the 90% range volume wise the past couple of games too, or right around it. And he's playing well. I like Chase Young. Brian Burns, Carolina draws Houston. Brian Burns had 2 sacks in his last game before the bye, I believe, too. I'm a Brian Burns fan as well. I think he's a really good player. He's been really productive. He's a pretty big name on the right above your head. There's Brian Burns. He's been a pretty big name as far as the edge guys go the past few years. So I would side with Chase Young and Brian Burns here, even though I do love Granderson, but I would go with Young and Burns.
Yeah, so I love Chase Young too. I mean, we talked about, I think I just called it out, like how much I appreciate his return to relevance and success. But I agree with you on Burns. I actually think I might go Granderson slightly over Young, just because of the matchup. Granderson against the Colts, I think he's going to get plenty of opportunities and volume there. And I don't know. It's a gut feel at this point, Kai. Yeah. So I wish I could give you some great insider analysis. Like, here's exactly why everything I'm saying is going to be correct. But no, it's just gut for me. Granderson over Chase this week. So
it makes sense, man. He does have the better matchup. Chase Young doesn't have an ideal matchup. I just he's kind of one of my guys. He's been playing better, this year, and I get one of those guys that if he's on my bench and has a big week, I get mad, but at myself. But honestly, Granderson we talked about him earlier. He's having a really good year. He's a really good play. You can't go wrong. I get the argument for Granderson over Young for sure, man.
Yep. All right, man. Well, that was it. Just a few questions this week. So that wraps us up here at the IDP show for our week 8 preview. A huge shout out again to Kyle Bellefeuil stepping in here, helping out on the fly. So Kyle, I don't know if you just want to plug some of the work you're doing and let them know where they can talk to you if they want to here.
Yeah, right on, man. You can find all my work over at footballguys.com. I write the IDP waiver wire article each week, drops on Tuesday, and update my dynasty ranks what I can. Floating around Twitter at KBell54 if you ever have any questions. I don't post a ton, busy and whatnot, but hey, I'll get back to you and help as much as I can for sure. But just want to say thanks for having me on, Jake, man. This is a blast. It's always fun hanging with you, and man, I really appreciate it.
Hey, you bet, Kyle. Hey, I love talking to you. I got my first chance to really work with you. What was that, like last February when we did the IDP school stuff? So
that was fun.
Chopping it up with you is always a friggin' blast. I'm sad that it came at the cost of spending time with Evan, but again, Kyle time is the best time, man. So
appreciate it, brother.
All right. Well, thank you, Kyle, and thank you to all our listeners, and good luck in your week 8 matchups.
And now it's time to go, 'cause you about to roll with the IDP show.